The Collection is the 2012 sequel to The Collector, once again directed by Marcus Dunstan and also once again starring Josh Stewart. Sequels to low-budget horror films don't tend to fare that well, do they? They don't tend to be all that good. So it's quite the surprise that I can turn to you and say, this one breaks that mould. It's actually pretty decent. So they bring back Josh Stewart's character. Obviously, he was abducted at the end of the first film. We get an escape towards the beginning, near the beginning of this film. Rather convoluted kind of set piece that goes on there. But yeah, he escapes, and then the film kind of plays like a very low budget Aliens kind of riff. So, you know, rather than Ripley, we get Stewart's character, and yeah, he's obviously he's survived this ordeal, and then a crack military crew kind of go with him back into the lion's den, and all get wiped out one by one. It is basically Aliens, but without the aliens. Instead, we get the Collector and his many traps and crazy, weird, horrible mutations, the things that he's done to various people. We learn what he is doing with these people he's collecting, and it is sick. Again, it has an Alien Resurrection vibe, I guess, when you think about... Oh. Yes, lass.
I wanted to give this...
Ah, thanks, Pudding. Lovely.
Because you're the best daddy.
Oh, you're the best daughter. Ever. Glad I got that on camera. Kind of has an Alien Resurrection vibe in that respect. You know, when you think about that scene with Ripley when she finds all the clones and they're all mutated and things. Yeah, you think about those creations in those tanks. We get something akin to that here. Only here it's more as an art form rather than genetic testing. But yeah, so like I say, it does feel like it's taken many beats, many riffs from the Alien franchise, but not in a hokey way. It just, it's good. I like the concept. I like the fact that we get Stewart's character returning to this place where he gets to confront his demons, so to speak. So if the first one was about him kind of redeeming himself somewhat for who he is as a person, you know, helping this little girl, trying to help her, and then this one, it's more about him confronting his demons, confronting his like with Ripley, going back to the scene of the crime, so to speak, and saying, "Get away from her, you bitch." There is actually a scene in this when I almost expected a line like that. So there's a bit when Stewart's character is fighting with the Collector, and the Collector himself in this seems a lot more physically imposing, to me at any rate. I mentioned this in my review for the first film, but yeah, he feels a lot more threatening in that regard with his physicality. And he's really giving Stewart's character a good going over, and then this character we thought was dead kind of pops out, and he throws this head on the floor, and it's just, basically in that moment I expected him to say, "Get away from them, bitch," or something along those lines. It's just, there's more than a few nods, I think, stylistically and just story beats to Aliens, and that ain't a bad thing. Like it doesn't do them in a hokey way. It's just when you think about it, you can't help but notice that they're there. But all the better for it. This isn't the film I was expecting, to be honest. As with the first one, you know, I was just expecting torch porn with the first one. I wasn't expecting good characters or anything like that. So it was quite a surprise. And here, again, it turns the film into more of an action-driven kind of piece. In much the same way, as I say, like when you go from Alien, which is this like isolated horror movie, to Aliens, which is an action film with military guys running around, getting into all kinds of nonsense. It follows that blueprint. I had a lot of fun with it. A lot of really good action beats in it, a lot of good twisted kind of things going on. So there's these guys that the Collector has collected, and yeah, he's done such a number on them now that they've just become these horrible, freakish zombie type creatures, and yeah, it's messed up when you think about it. When you think about the psychology of this guy, this dude, and what he's all about, yeah, it's really messed up. And he's an intelligent guy. Again, I mentioned that in the first film. We get to see a bit more about who he is, particularly by the end of this film, when there's another confrontation between him and Stewart's character, which is actually quite satisfying, it must be said. It's a satisfying confrontation, which also kind of leads us to where we might be going in the third film. But yeah, the dude is definitely one of the more threatening and terrifying villains in slasher franchises of recent years. So yeah, interested to see where they go with him, and if we get a bit more information about him in the third film that's coming. There is a scene which I did mention at the beginning of the film, which is very elaborate. It's this nightclub scene, and somehow the collector has managed to rig this nightclub up with loads of traps, which I don't quite get. It's yeah, again, really elaborate traps. It would have taken an awful lot of work, especially for one guy to pull off. And I'm assuming this nightclub ain't his, so to get in there, to get into to someone else's nightclub, rig it up, and it stretches believability a bit, stretches credibility. If you can get over that hurdle, then the scene itself is like, yeah, it's like that opening sequence in Blade, but on a whole other kind of, yeah, filtered through Saw. You know, this is Saw meets Aliens. Yeah, with a bit of the stylistic touches of Blade. You know, when all that bloodthirsty action's going on at the beginning of Blade, think of that, but crank it up a notch. It's quite brutal. It's quite disgusting. Again, not for the faint of heart, not for anyone who really doesn't like body horror, but dare I say, mildly amusing. The primary thing with this film, as with the first one, is the main character, played by Stewart. You know, I really like this guy. I root for him. You know, when he's kind of forced to go back, you know, he's made this deal because this girl has been abducted, and they're basically the military team are working for her dad to try and get her back, and he leads them into the lion's den, but under the condition that once he gets them in, he can go. When that turns and the military guy's like, actually no, you know this place better than anyone, so you're coming with us. Yeah, you feel for the guy and you're rooting for him, and you want him to get out, as you did with him in the first film. He develops a kind of a relationship with the girl that's been abducted, with the woman who's been abducted, not in a, you know, romantic kind of way, but just the survivor kind of way. You know, we've both been through an ordeal, we're both, you know, getting through this, and there's a bit of a connection there that I kind of like. And it is good to see her name in the credits of the third film again. So it's not a character that they're just going to jettison and just stick with Stewart for the sequel. I like that, yeah, when they bring these characters in, they make you care for them, and they bring them back later down the line, so that they keep, yeah, I just think it keeps that emotional thread going through. Whereas if you look at a lot of slasher films, a lot of these kind of horror movies, you get a cast of characters, they wipe them all out, and they bring on a new bunch for the sequel, and you know, the main character might pop up in the intro or whatever for the next one, but then they're dispensed with, or whatever. I like here that, yeah, they've built up these more heroic characters, the good characters. Gooder, what kind of word is that? Yeah, they built up the characters that we like, and they're going to stick with them. So yeah, all in all, really good film. Once again, Dunstan displaying quite an effective use of little resources. Although I think this clearly has a bigger budget than the first film. But yeah, he does a good job. I like it. I will probably watch it again long before I watch many other horror sequels I can think of. I was surprised by it. I like its efficiency. The plotting is tight. The running time is short. You know, they don't overstay their welcome. They get in, they do what they need to do, and they get out. So yeah, bring on the Collector 3. That's all I can say. I will give this a 3.5 out of 5, same as I did with the first film. But what about you? Have you seen it? If so, what did you think about it? Leave your thoughts below, let me know, and until next time, cracking.